Welcome to Golden 8. We are proud to have launched the first automated intelligent technology to the payment processing industry. For the first time, merchants can audit the participants in the payment industry from inside. We have taken 5 years to dig deep into the payment industry, actually sourcing the raw data from the many different touch points from the payment industry to pull that forward for merchants. And we've had to fix it. 1 in 3 pieces of data have needed repair. 1 in 11 cards have been mislabeled, which would affect fees and other things like that. And so we have taken thousands of data points and built the first relational database for merchants to be able to access and be able to audit the payment industry and pull thousands of data points of intelligence at a transactional level. So for the first time, merchants can use this intelligence to be able to change behavior or optimize success rates, settings, fraud prevention settings, things like that, to be able to maximize success rates and maximize their client's experience, minimize fraud, and find missing revenue in the payment industry. Why is it important to have thousands of data points tracked at a transactional level? And the competition today, the other providers are going to provide you 20 to 35. But what does that mean? Why would that be important? Well, today other providers are tracking around 6 different errors where money can be lost. It might be, or a decline can happen. You would have insufficient funds. You're going to have some do not honors that are non-standard codes. You're going to have ABS mismatch, you're going to have CB2, you're going to have expired cards, you're going to have some fraud prevention settings. So they're tracking less than 10. Today we have tracked missing revenue for merchants in 55 categories. 55 categories, there is missing revenue where merchants are losing money. That's why thousands of data points, besides the intelligence and behavioral changes that can be optimized, there is missing money in 55 categories for merchants today. Who's tracking that? Nobody but Golden 8. So why would Golden 8 be of value for a CFO? We have spent 5 years pulling out thousands of data points and creating the first relational database for the payment industry, allowing you to fully audit at a transactional level, including fees. So in this relational database that's been created, we've adhered to all the GAAP principles. So for the first time again in the payment industry, there is reporting that adheres to GAAP principles, and we have then automated to the penny your cash accounting and your accrual accounting. Let's review that. Cash accounting is automated any day of the month. You can have your board meeting any day of the month, and you actually have accrual accounting, which will track all your deposits from all the different card types that are on a delayed deposit, so you can truly track your error margins and find those missing deposits and those missing transactions. Automated accounting, cash and accrual, is revolutionary in the payment industry. Why is Golden 8 of value for a CEO? A CEO is trying to drive the ship. A CEO is trying to drive revenue. We recently did an audit on launch of a retail customer that last year had an error margin on stated value and revenue of 7%. We see a range from 3% error margin all the way up into the 20s. There is tax revenue that today, literally today, we saved a company $80,000 in tax revenue because of overstated income of what was reported in the industry that they never received. There's also thousands of data points. There's intelligence at your fingertip tracking anything you want from the payment industry. Custom reports that can be created that you can see at a glance every day to be able to help you drive your ship. That's relevant to revenue, that's relevant to your trends, your health of your company, your reputation, chargebacks, refunds. We had a retail shop that's overstated income $276,000 through an audit we did yesterday. Inside of that is industry errors, There's a potential of internal fraud. There's a lot of things that are going to be found and will help a CEO drive their ship with intelligence, revenue, recovery, holding people accountable. So we've talked about taxes, but if you're raising money, what does that mean? We had a merchant who understated revenue by millions of dollars. They had a partial exit that year. So what was the lost revenue on their valuation? Let me share with you a case study that we just performed with a door-to-door security company. Recurring revenue. As soon as a transaction is declined, they try it 3 times. They'll typically try to call the customer. If they can't get those, then they're paying 10 cents a transaction. It's lower ticket. Therefore, they turn them off. We saw this huge downward trend in recurring billing. And when we asked what was the situation, they said, well, after this set period of time, after so many retries, we just turned them off. When we pulled their audit out of the automated intelligent technology, we showed that 42% of that recurring billing customer could have been a one-click fix. So today, 50 to 80% of those declines are being labeled as do not honor because the industry is not following or adhering to the Visa, MasterCard standards, and all the different participants from gateways to bank deposits are not adhering to those same guidelines. Therefore, the industry doesn't know how to label certain decline errors that would actually be helpful, and they bucket them into a big garbage bucket called do not honor, which literally tells merchants nothing. Because of the thousands of data points that we pull, we have intelligent billing, and we can show you, yes, the industry reported do not honor, for example, but here's what actually happened. So instead of shutting off, 42% of their declines are now in a one-click fix, and their revenue has recovered over $10,000 a month just in the first month of fixing their recurring billing. We recently did another test study with a retail restaurant, and we tracked for a week and went through with them specifically, here's all the error transactions that were authorized and settled and you did not get paid for. In that, there was multiple different reasons why there was revenue that was lost. Some of those were partial auths. So today, our statistic we're tracking after hundreds of millions of dollars reconciled is 1 in 30 transactions are being partially authed. That means that you tried to approve for $162, but that debit card or a prepaid card, but even a debit card, only approved for $132. So a lot of gateways, a lot of point of sales don't know how to handle that. And so what's happening is the original amount that's batching shows the 132, and the accounting team and the company has no idea, there's no visibility in the payment reports that show that the original amount that was run was 164. So they're actually missing $30. Does that make sense? So we have recently a restaurant, chip run retail transactions where partial auths were handled appropriately for the most part. They ran several transactions for $21, $16, and they were partially authed around $12, $13, $17, but they're losing $5, $6, $12 each transaction. Those servers do not recognize on one tiny line item that there's missed revenue there in this specific point of sale. Therefore, 5 transactions in 1 week were not collected on that money, and the restaurant owner had no idea. If you look at the batch, it says the $12, but what was actually run was $16. We have actually tracked now thousands of transactions just like that, and the merchants have actually been paid interchange fees on the full amount, the $16, even though they were only paid the $12. And the batch has only the partial auth amount. So when you're doing the accounting, it will not be found if you're not tracking the original invoiced amount. That's one really great find that we've been able to find for merchants. We actually found another point of sale in a retail environment that could not handle partial auths, and that merchant lost $252,000 amongst its corporate locations and franchises last year through partial auths. Since then, with our technology's help, they've chosen a different point of sale company and they've transitioned 90 locations over to this new software that better handles partial auths. We have been really fortunate to work with amazing companies and amazing teams, and we see ourselves as a partner. We are bringing to the forefront the visibility into the payment industry. It still takes a partnership to optimize our success rates, improve behavior, improve accounting. Even it helps us to understand better your processes as a company, and giving us feedback as behavior affects the data. And so it helps us to create additional logics and custom reports for our merchants that allow them to then just streamline their errors and allow the preventable errors to bubble up. So it definitely is a partnership relationship. But as we've gone into those relationships, we've had teams that have worked really, really hard to find these errors. And when we walk into those companies, they say, here's our error margin. In those situations, we've had two, for example, that have a 5-step process to reconcile to the transaction. They do about $80 million. And they know that their error margin, their goal is to get within 2.5% error margin by the end of the month. We had another company that is reconciling complete retail transactions, and they have spent 3 years with 16 developers pulling whatever raw data they can get out of the industry to fill the gaps of their industry reports, and they know that they are hovering around a 2% error margin. I have said we've found two types of merchants: those who know their error margin and those who don't. I have not yet, in 350 customers, found a third type that doesn't have any error margin. It's not hard to find documentation in the payment industry that claims and is proven that the industry is running on an error margin. When accounting teams say, we're not finding an error margin, why is that? Well, if you have an integration with a software that ties in a specific gateway partner, and then that gateway partner is going to report what? They're going to report the data that flows through whoever partner that they have integrated with. So whether it's the main networks, Payment Tech, WorldPay, First Data, Global TSYS, Elevon, whatever payment network that they've integrated, that is the data that they're reporting. So of course that's going to line up. And what data are they reporting? Well, the same data that they've picked with their bank. So you've created just one vein of data. But who is the third party inside of the payment industry pulling thousands of data from the treasury departments, from the bins, that are truly auditing that one vein of data? So when an accounting team says, well, 1 + 1 = 2, who audited that it wasn't supposed to be 1 + 2 = 3? In the payment industry, there's basically veins of data and partnerships. So basically, a company can integrate a software that has integrated a gateway, that has integrated a payment network, First Data, Elevon, WorldPay, TSYS, Global, the primary payment networks, and then they're tied to an issuing bank or an acquiring bank, okay? So what happens is that same data gets pushed from end to end. But inside of the payment industry, there's data being created by the treasury files and the card issuing bins and the processing bins and all of the logic behind fees and billing. And so if you're auditing or if you're doing your accounting off of the same vein of data, where is the third-party audit that actually reconciles that vein of data? Because the gateway is only going to report whatever the processing network reports. And the processing network is only going to report the data that's pushed by their bank. So nowhere in that are you going to find those errors. It's by third-party auditing where you can, inside of the payment industry, where you can find all of the industry errors. I tell merchants, you don't pay for internal audits, you pay for external audits for a reason. From a technology perspective, here's what we can provide that is not been in the payment industry. It does not exist outside of our technology. And we've had that described by most of the major card brands, most of the major networks, head of products, CEOs, CTOs. So we're really excited about where we're at in the industry today and what we can provide. We really do feel like we're the first technology partner really focused on fighting for the merchants. And what are we doing to accomplish that? Well, we're bringing all of the data forward out of the payment industry, organizing it, cleaning it, making sure that now it's accessible, easy to access, easy to use, full transparency in the payment industry for merchants, available to merchants. That's first and foremost. With that, they're able to do all kinds of intelligence, cleanup, optimize behavior, things like that. From there, we are the first technology that does full circle reconciliation from transaction, and we even track the failed transaction where there's a lot of missed opportunity, all the way through to deposit. Ask any other provider for a deposit report down to the transaction including fees. Doesn't exist outside of Golden 8 technology. From there, we provide live chargeback reporting. So merchants can access the minute it's filed in the payment industry. You can see what's being filed and you can make adjustments. Maybe it's an opportunity to call the merchant or the customer. Maybe it's an opportunity to call the customer. Maybe it's an opportunity to do a refund and save yourselves $25 and reputational risk. We have the only accounting and reporting system that follows full GAAP principles with automated accounting. And then with all of this data, we have pre-built all kinds of reports and analytics. But what's important to you? We've had customers that it's fulfillment. They are tracking and they're fulfilling off of authorized transactions. Well, we know there's an error margin, so products being shipped and we're not getting paid. There hasn't been a single merchant yet who has not shipped product that didn't get paid for some of it. So we can now track those all the way through a deposit and know that when you shipped a product, you for sure get paid, or we can help you recoup that revenue and represent those transactions. At the same time, other providers have needed to track transaction success rates out of terminals. It's very expensive in big stations or large retail environments to update complete checkout stations. So they want to track terminal success rates. Big franchises want to be able to see what are all my locations running within the same kind of margins, success rates, trends, or are there settings issues? Is there fraud issues? Is there employee issues? What's going on that is creating these things from being non-standardized? What needs to be optimized? So there's all kinds of custom reports that we can do with now that we have access to all this amazing data. And so we're excited to help you. We feel ourselves as a partner to be in a process of continual improvement, and we're excited to work with you. For the right opportunities, where it makes sense time-wise, because it does take us a day's worth of work to pull data, repair some data, get it all organized, we are able to pull historic data and help you find where your preventable opportunities were, where your recoverable opportunities are. And we're happy to partner with you to access data, pull that forward into what we call a report card, and you can see statistics of where there was opportunity and what we can prevent moving forward.